What's going on, everybody? It's me, TheT-SaneOtaku here, and we're back for another deck profile. This time we're going to be doing D-Robos, one of my favorite decks of the format right now. And let's just get right into it. As you can see right now, we have the starter. This is the Die-Hawk. So Die-Hawk's skill, if you don't know, it's what makes this deck amazing. It's when you have a grade 3 D-Robo, you can shove 3 of these guys into the soul. Well, him and 3 others. It doesn't have to include him, but you'll usually always do. You shove him into the soul, and it forces a stride into a D-Robo. So I think that's like, if any of you guys are watching this deck profile, you understand why we run this card. This card's amazing. This card's dumb. It makes it to where you don't have to run Seabreeze. Yeah. We're gonna go on to grade 0s. We're gonna move these grade 3s over here. So for grade 0s in this deck, it's kind of pretty straightforward, but I have a couple different options that I have. I just prefer a couple. This one is not really one you can change out, and this is the heal trigger, which countercharges and soul charges. This is your second form of countercharge in this deck, and you only run 2. She's really good because she's got a D-Robo name, she's a heal, and that countercharge is literally God. So next up, I run 8 crit. I forgot to grab the last one. I run 8 crit, mostly because the early pressure is nice, and then the second reason why is because I like to have all D-Robo name for Magna Dybird, and so I would rather run 8 stand, or maybe 6 and 6, but because this is the only stand trigger with D-Robo in its name, this is the only way I can do it. And then also, this guy's got an effect, so you don't really want to run the new moon. I mean, I also run him because, look at that promo foiling. Beautiful. Then we run 4 copies of the stand. So out of all the triggers, this one might be the one that people question. The reason why we do this is because of the fact that having a stand trigger on your Magna Dybird turns is really just impactful, because you could go and get that Dayusha stand on the right, and then it has to attack again, and then that requires even more guard material. Its second ability is what really makes it also pretty good, because you can slide it into the soul, give your Vanguard 4,000, you draw 1. That helps when we get closer into the G zone, which is over here, and we need numbers for this boy. He needs 40,000, so getting your Vanguard to a even level so that all of his numbers are perfect, 4K makes you just get to that nice even level, so you're 30, and then you can just level up the rest of the way. So, really good card. Next up, we got grade 1s and grade 2s. I have them all in the same stack because I'm lazy. So, we have a sad horn being blown today. I lost my second Laurel for some odd reason. I don't know where it is right now. But we run 2 Laurel because Laurel is amazing. And this was the $23 Laurel, but now it's $9 because promos are great. So if you don't know what Laurel does, you haven't played the game long enough. I'll pick him up later. Next up, you run 3 copies of the new Die-Raptor, right? Yeah, Die-Raptor. So Die-Raptor, the reason why I don't run Die-Cutter in the build and I run him instead is because of the fact that when you go and have him place, you can mill the top. You can look at the top 5, mill all grade 3s. If you mill 1, 4K. If you mill 2, draw a card. If I'm going to be honest here, I've never hit off his ability where I got both of the mills. Like, I know it's possible, and I know the chances are pretty great because we run a lot of grade 3s. I don't know. I'm not lucky enough to get it. But him being an 11K on his own is pretty nice. And then the main reason why I run him is because if you place him down before you ride to grade 3, and as long as you get this boyo on your Vanguard circle, when you go into your first stride off of your starter, you're able to use your on-stride ability and use your strides ability, so you can go and get 3 cards instead of only calling 2, which is really powerful, and also makes your Vanguard a lot stronger. So that's where this card kind of comes into play. Over here. Next up, for Diagonal, this is the new PG. As you all know, this PG is really nice because it has an ability compared to the original D-Robo one. I know some people that run 2 of this and then 2 of either Calm or Monk. I see more Monk than Calm. I think just running 4 is just a really nice number because then you can get this consistently in your hand, so there's no other options. Because his auto ability when it's on place saves me a ton of cards in hand. Because you can sit there and die-hawk everything to soul, and then his auto ability says when it's placed on the Guardian Circle, I can give my D-Robo Vanguard plus 4,000 for every D-Robo in the soul. So getting a plus like 30,000 is usually enough to guard most like pesky rearguard swings, possibly a Vanguard swing, and it just saves me cards in hand. And then it's a PG that can guard any D-Robo, so pretty good. We run 3 stride support. The sad thing about this one is it doesn't place on placement of rearguard to search you grade 3, but what it does do in the other in return is when you pay the cost of stride with her, you can choose your Vanguard, give it 4,000, but choose a card from your drop zone, you put it into your soul. And then also, she's considered not only a grade 3 in hand, but a grade 3 in drop. Grade 3s in drop help this guy along. I don't find the grade 3s in drop very useful because I usually always have one in drop, but it does help out when you're getting into that end game where you might run Jet, and so you can throw her back to the deck to draw cards and stuff like that. You just want to have multiple ways to stride. She's a D-Robo, and like she does come in handy sometimes. Mostly I call her for my stride on first go, so she's used for that most. And then we're going to be going on to the grade 2. The best grade 2 in the entire deck. This is Dipole. His name's Diball, but Dipole was in the Japanese translation, and I prefer that name to the full extent. His ability is on placement of Vanguard or Rear, you have to reveal a grade 3 D-Robo, and if your Vanguard isn't a D-Robo, or if the card revealed isn't the grade 3, then you lose 5,000. That part, it hurts when you ride him, but it's not so bad, because you know you can have a booster and still be a 10k body on your opponent's turn. But the second reason why he's just so good is because this is your primary call target for your first stride, and I usually try to get 2 of these on my board, 1 behind my Vanguard, and then 1 over off to the side somewhere, because my main attackers are grade 3s in this deck, and having my grade 3s passively be 21,000 is really good, unless you're Gallop, because fuck Gallop. Gallop sucks, but this card's just so good. Also, like 10k, amazing. We run 2 copies of Ballast. So his ability is really good because technically it's free, but it's not at the same time. Because his ability is on placement, you give red text to the Vanguard that when it swings, you counterblast 1 and you draw 1. I use this ability if I like really just have counterblast to spare. If I'm at 5 damage and I have, you know, the time, I'm like, okay, why not? The biggest reason why I run him in the deck is because he's a D-Robo. Second reason is because you can't use Die Bazooka because you're not a Kaiser Vanguard anymore. I think the biggest reason I use his ability most often is when I don't get him in my hand. And so I'm just trying to get him in my hand as fast as I can. And so I'll call this on grade 2, give my Vanguard the skill of on swing, I can draw 1, and then I'll use it. So I'm just trying to get cards in hand so I can go and just filter out enough to get my grade 3, because when you don't ride Dainexus, you can still play the game pretty well. It's just a little upsetting when most of the cards in your hand are just useless, so run him at 2. And then we run 4 copies of this boy. There's sadly not really, I mean, you can run Jet, but I just found that this card was really good because all of my grade 2s are technically free. On placement, you can soul charge 1. I hate it when I soul charge Dainexus and I don't have him in my hand because I rode to like Shadow Kaiser. And so that's kind of sad, but I usually try to soul charge with him so my Magna Diver turns are a little bit better. And then the second reason why I run him is because when my drive check reveals a grade 3, he gets 10,000. So even if he doesn't get 2,000 due to his own skill and you call him and he just gets 10k, you can have a 7k booster behind him and it becomes 26. So he's just really good. D-Robo name. There's not much else to say for him. Lastly, onto the grade 3s. I mean, of course, this is a Dainexus deck profile, so we run 4 copies of Dainexus. This is our ace of the deck. It changed the deck's playstyle from massive turbo break crap to being more of a tanky deck, which I prefer. I also like his art. I was never in the game for Dayusha as much and like Daikaiser, so he's kind of just my boy. He's my bouncing baby boy. The biggest use about this card, you don't use your on-stride ability every turn. You'd like to, but the counterblast is tight. Choosing a grade 3 and putting it back to the deck is super handy because you like revealing grade 3s. But his continuous is really what makes this card super good. All grade 3s get intercept and 10k to their shield value, which is 0. So every grade 3 is a trigger, and every grade 3 also has intercept. The 10k shield just makes me feel like you treat grade 3s as if they were triggers. So basically getting a grade 3 feels like it's a crit again, and that's just what feels like really nice. And so like this card's just so good. And then the rest of the cards are like random. Like I run one Dyerd, one Daikaiser, one Dayusha, one Shadow Kaiser, one of my main boy Dayusha, so we run one of each, and then we run 2 of the Legion. Literally, this is anything you want. Like, if you ride anything but Dainexus, you just play a vanilla Vanguard's 11,000 game. Unless you like, because even if you ride to this, you don't Legion ever. You want to stride and you just want to just go that route. So there really isn't much you can do. Like once you ride, let's say like Shadow Kaiser, you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna go and hopefully re-ride. And if you can't re-ride, then you just call out stuff and you keep on going and you just don't have intercept and 10k shields. That's literally the only difference. And so like, you can run whatever you want. I mostly just say you must run a copy of Dayusha and Dayusha Reverse because it's the boys Dayusha. And if any of you have seen, because today is the 14th of March, the new set was released. Not the new set, but the new era. And so with Dayusha being the main card that's going to be back, I'm very excited because now I can actually live my Dayusha days. So that's kind of exciting. We're going to pop over to the G-Zone here real quick. I just got this out of order a little bit, so it doesn't really matter. But we run 2 copies of Dyerth. Dyerth is our first stride in the deck, and it's the main reason why Diehawk isn't as bad as it could be. So his ability is Counterblast 2, Persona Flip, call a grade 3 and a grade 2, and then the rest of his ability never procs off. But if you have 2 D-Robo G units face up, he gets a crit. That only applies if you run more than that. But the chances of you not using this on your first stride and you're going into like something else is so slim that it really doesn't matter, because even if I pay the cost of stride normally and I don't go first, I still go into this card because then I don't have to call cards out of my hand, and then I just keep more cards in my hand and I just get more advanced that way. So it's just a super really good card. But he's the reason why our counterblast is tight, because we must get 2 counterblasts before we stride. Otherwise, it's kind of sad, boys. So next up, I don't have these 2 yet. These are the only cards left in the deck I still have missing. Actually, that's a lie. I'm missing one other card. These are slowly going down in price. I'm about to pick them up soon, but these are 2 copies of Max. If it's between you and me, I've actually never gone into this card yet. He has the most beautiful art in the entire G-Zone, though, in my opinion. But his ability is Persona Flip, get 10k. Then, if the number of cards face up in your G-Zone with D-Robo and its card name is 3 or more, you get a crit, I think. And then it's, crap. I don't go in this card enough. If it's 2 or more, you get a crit. If it's 4 or more, everything in your front row gets a crit and 5k. So giving the 2 cards that are grade 3s in the front of your, I almost said stage for Weiss, on the front of your field, if they have dipoles in the back, they can easily be 21s, and then giving them 5k makes them 26s, and then they both have crits. So it's basically oldie in the day minimum razors with your Vanguard, which is literally 26 plus 15 plus 2 crit. So that's usually where you get like most of your cheeses from. I don't prefer going into this card. I prefer going into another card just because it has more finishing power than some others do. So that's why I go into this card. Hello. We go into 4 copies of Magna Dybird. To be honest, you can run this card as a 2 of, because I've never gone into it more than once. But this card's just really good, and I run it as a 4 of because it's the cheap alternative that I had, and we're cheap boys. So his ability is the reason why you use all your soul now, and he's also the only guard break that the Dainexus has. But it's G-flip. Every time a unit is placed on the Guardian Circle, I can Soul Blast 1, look at the top 3. If all of them are D-Robos, which the chances of them all being it is pretty high, then I add a grade 3 if it's there. If I added a grade 3 to my hand, I can go and retire one of my opponent's Guardians, and so that's always pretty good. Where's Dayusha?
Guard break.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Just a good card. Then we run 2 copies of our boy over here, X Peak, right? Bravest Peak. Ugh. Anyway, the reason why we run him as a 2 of is just because of the fact that there's some times when you just don't have the soul for it. Like if you haven't die-hawked and you didn't stride first, like you strode first but you went second, you can go in him second stride. You can get that cheeky quad drive, and then after that you can go into something else, and then you can go into him again. This card's just really good because its GB3 is what pushes you along, so that even if we don't power up our Vanguard, we can still pull it off pretty well. You know, it's just, I mean, like, if you've seen Gallop deck profiles, you know how punishing that thing is. We run 1 copy of the GB8 because the GB8 is also punishing. If you have ever seen a D-Robo deck profile, you know what the fuck this thing does. This thing's retarded. Giving rear guards 100k for the column just because my Vanguard has a balls to the walls amount of criticals is just insane. And then if the opponent lets this thing hit, no matter what happens, they're not healing out of it. Having 8 critical, like you get a crit for every rear guard you have. So having 6. A critical of 6, how do you heal out of 6 damage, Nick? Do you have to be at 0 damage and then you have to heal on the 5th one?
No,
right?
you know, like, you'd have to. Yeah, you'd have to be at 0 damage, and then you would have to heal depending on what your opponent's damage is at. So if they're at like 2 damage, you could probably heal out of it. But like,
it's like
chances are better. It's absurdly high.
I have a laurel in the back.
Restate! Best part of the game.
So we run Stark in this deck because we have the deck room, and also having a Vanguard that's just swing. If you know your opponent doesn't have G Guardians or PGs, it's punishing. Everyone knows what Stark does. And then last up, we run 4 G Guardians. The reason why this changes, so it's either you run 2 copies of the Gallop, so you can run 2 copies of this and 4 of these, or you turn this down to another G Guardian. It really depends. We have the 3, so it's okay. I run 2 copies of this boy because giving my Vanguard 5,000 also helps me not have to throw away as many grade 3s, because grade 3s are our main shield, but it also is our main way to stride, so losing these is not bad. The only part I don't like about him is he has to Soul Blast, which is, you know, a cost I like to keep for Magna Dybird. But overall, giving my Vanguard 5k is really nice against like things like Aqua Force. I run 1 copy of Go 5. The reason why I run Go 5 is because he's our big shield value if we need it. He gets 10k to the shield, and then if we take a damage to get another 5k. It's just so easy to get that. And then you have to Soul Blast a card with 5,000 power or more, which is like every card in the deck, so.
Except for Laurel.
Yeah, except for Laurel.
But why the fuck would you ever run Laurel?
I don't know. I've done it. It's sad. And then the last card we run is Atlantis Dolphin. Atlantis Dolphin is the only other way to to countercharge in this deck. So some people run 2 copies of it. I think that running 1 is okay because by the time you need all the counterblasts, you should have like countercharging twice in a game is usually sufficient enough just to go and operate for the rest of the game. So running 1 of it and then having a heal trigger that goes in countercharges the other one is usually okay. And then he's also our big shield value, so you know there's not much else to say. It's Atlantis Dolphin. So that was our deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed that one. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. And yeah, we'll see you all on the next one.